When Donald Trump claimed victory in the 2016 presidential election, he and his supporters were quick to declare that his win was a mandate, a clear and unequivocal endorsement from the American people. This supposed mandate was used to justify his administration's controversial policies, including appointments to his cabinet, executive orders, and even his approach to legislation. Trump's victory was, in his eyes, a sweeping mandate to reshape the nation according to his vision. But as the years have passed, that victory has increasingly been exposed for what it truly was, not a landslide, but a narrow plurality. Far from the overwhelming win Trump often boasts about, his victory in 2016 now appears as a much smaller and more fragile accomplishment, shrinking to just a 1.6% margin and only around 2.5 million more votes than his opponent, Hillary Clinton. This stunning decline in the margin has made it clear. The mandate Trump claimed in 2016 was little more than political spin, and the consequences of this illusion have far-reaching implications for both his policies and the state of American democracy. In this video, we'll break down how Trump's supposed mandate is evaporating, examine the history of presidential mandates, and analyze the political fallout of his narrow victory. We'll also explore how this reality has been distorted by right-wing media and the broader political establishment, and why understanding the true nature of Trump's victory is crucial for the future of the country. The shrinking margin, from a landslide to a tiny embarrassment. To understand the extent of Trump's diminishing victory, it's important to first revisit the numbers. In 2016, Donald Trump won the Electoral College by a decisive margin, securing 304 electoral votes to Hillary Clinton's 227. However, the popular vote tells a very different story. Clinton received 2.1% more votes than Trump, or roughly 2.8 million more votes, making her the popular vote winner of the 2016 election. The difference between Clinton's and Trump's popular vote was substantial. Clinton's margin of 2.1% is not an insignificant number in the context of presidential elections. In fact, it is more than 25% larger than Trump's supposed victory. Yet, this reality is often obscured by Trump's rhetoric and the narrative spun by his supporters. With each passing year, the narrative of Trump's overwhelming victory has been chipped away by the undeniable truth. The margin was much smaller than initially claimed, and his victory was far from a mandate. By the time the 2020 election rolled around, Trump's win in 2016 seemed even more fragile. Despite running for re-election, Trump had not expanded his base in any meaningful way. In fact, he faced declining support, and in 2020, he lost the popular vote to Joe Biden by 4.5%, or over 7 million votes. The 2020 loss further highlighted the flaw in the idea that Trump had a sweeping mandate in 2016. What had once been a comfortable margin of victory for Trump, in reality, was nothing more than a plurality win, a result that, while valid, did not reflect a broad consensus across the nation. It's essential to note that while Trump's supporters still argued that he had a mandate, the truth is that more people in America voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and even more did so for Joe Biden in 2020. In short, Trump's victory, originally celebrated as a political triumph, now looks like a narrow escape, and that has profound implications. The myth of the mandate and Republican double standards. One of the most striking aspects of Trump's 2016 win is how it has been framed as a mandate by his supporters, particularly in the context of policy decisions and appointments. But when we dig into the reality of that claim, it becomes clear that the idea of a mandate is not only misleading, but politically convenient. Trump supporters, including figures like Pete Hegseth, Matt Gaetz, and others, have repeatedly used his so-called mandate to justify actions that many critics argue lack proper qualifications, transparency, and legitimacy. The idea is simple. Trump won the election, so he should have the power to appoint whomever he chooses to positions of influence, even if those appointments are controversial or ill-advised. In this sense, Trump's victory has been weaponized to justify extreme policy decisions, ranging from the controversial appointments to his cabinet to the sweeping executive actions that have often been at odds with public opinion. However, this is where we encounter a contradiction. Republicans, particularly during the Obama years, frequently denied President Barack Obama the legitimacy of a mandate despite his 2 terms in office and significant popular vote victories. Obama won the 2008 election by a margin of 7.2%, and in 2012, he won re-election by a 3.9% margin. Yet, despite these clear majorities, Republicans in Congress routinely resisted Obama's agenda, claiming that he lacked a mandate. They argued that his victories were not enough to justify his policies, often pushing back against his legislative efforts and nominees and questioning the legitimacy of his presidency. Trump's situation is vastly different. He lost the popular vote and won the Electoral College with a narrow margin. His so-called mandate, therefore, lacks the fundamental legitimacy that Obama's victories had. But when it comes to Trump, Republicans and right-wing media spin this situation as a clear endorsement of his policies and choices. This double standard highlights a disturbing trend in American politics, where the concept of a mandate is only invoked when it suits the agenda of the party in power. The concept of mandate in a divided America. The reality of a mandate is tied to the idea of a broad and unified national consensus. A true mandate implies that a president's policies and vision have been overwhelmingly supported by the majority of voters. But in a deeply polarized America, the idea of a mandate becomes increasingly shaky. As the country becomes more divided along political lines, it is more difficult to claim that any president has the overwhelming support of the American people. Trump's win in 2016 was not a sweeping victory but a plurality, a situation in which the candidate with the most votes wins, but not necessarily a majority of voters. This distinction is crucial because it highlights the reality that Trump's victory was far from a national consensus. His margin of victory, in fact, became so narrow over time that it no longer held the same significance it once had. In a polarized political environment, the notion of a mandate becomes a tool for political manipulation, often used to justify policies that are not supported by the majority. In Trump's case, the shrinking margin of victory only serves to weaken the argument that he has a mandate to govern as he sees fit. As public opinion continues to shift and more voters turn away from Trump's agenda, it becomes clear that his mandate was always more about perception and less about reality. The role of media in creating the mandate myth. One of the key drivers of the mandate myth is the role of right-wing media. Figures like Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, and other conservative influencers have consistently amplified Trump's narrative of a sweeping victory. These media outlets play a crucial role in shaping public perception by promoting the idea that Trump's win was both legitimate and a clear endorsement of his agenda. This has allowed Trump to continue framing his presidency as one that is backed by the people, even though the actual numbers tell a different story. The role of media in shaping political narratives cannot be underestimated. Right-wing commentators and news outlets often push back against inconvenient truths, such as the reality of Trump's narrow victory, by casting doubt on the legitimacy of the opposition or redirecting attention to perceived injustices. This creates an alternate reality where the facts are manipulated to fit a particular narrative, and the idea of a mandate is propagated without regard for its true meaning. The impact of Trump's shifting mandate on American democracy. Trump's shrinking mandate, or lack thereof, raises important questions about the future of American democracy. As the nation becomes more divided, the idea of a clear mandate becomes increasingly irrelevant. Instead, the focus should shift toward a more nuanced understanding of political power and representation. The growing disconnect between the will of the people and the actions of those in power poses a significant threat to the democratic principles on which the country was founded. The fact that Trump continues to push policies that are at odds with the majority of Americans highlights the dangers of a political system in which the voices of the minority can disproportionately influence the direction of the country. It's a reminder that the concept of a mandate should not be taken at face value, but should instead be critically examined in the context of public opinion and electoral realities. As the reality of Trump's diminishing victory becomes more apparent, it's important to recognize the implications this has for his administration and the broader political landscape. The idea of a mandate, once used to justify his policies and actions, has increasingly been exposed as an illusion. With every passing year, the margin of his victory shrinks, revealing the fragile foundation upon which his presidency was built. The American people did not overwhelmingly endorse Donald Trump's vision for the country in 2016, and as we approach future elections, it's crucial to remember that his victory was anything but a mandate. The myth of the landslide will continue to be pushed by right-wing media and political elites, but the truth is clear. Most Americans did not vote for Donald Trump's